Hello everyone, I'm Joe from Scarecrow Joe's studio. Welcome back. I was not planning on doing any more tutorials or segments of tutorials until after the holidays, and after the new year. However, for a lot of you that were hanging out and wondering what's going on with the owl tutorial, because I completely interrupted that. I shifted gears and didn't finish that tutorial for you. And I didn't think that was very fair. So I had some time on my hands and decided that I was going to go ahead and film the final segment of the paper mache owl tutorial. So in this final segment for you, I'm going to show you how to attach your wing feathers, and then also it's the same concept if you wanted to attach some tail feathers as well. So let's get going. Okay, I have that layer of clay on my owl wing area, and as usual I'm going to go in here with a paintbrush and some paste and smooth that out. And then when I'm done smoothing this out with the paste and the paintbrush, I'm going to smooth it out even more with the back concave side of a spoon, or you can use any kind of a little sculpting tool. But I'm just applying a little bit more moisture by adding the paste and smoothing it out. By applying a little bit more moisture, it's going to make it easier for the attachment of those newspaper feathers. So that's all smoothed out, so you can see. And I made sure that I rounded out the bottom. Turn it that way so you could see. I just rounded, made sure that it retained that shape, just that rounded shape there. Just like the last time when I showed you all how to attach the feathers to the head of the owl. Same process. I'm taking those groups of feathers, a few of them at a time, and I'm putting them into my paste here. And I'm just going to let them kind of just sit in there for, half a minute or so. Just let them kind of soak in there. You don't want to get like a bunch of them so that they're crazy and overlapping. You want to make sure that you can still separate them. So that's been sitting in there for under a minute. I mean, you don't want to have them sitting in there for a crazy long period of time, because then they're just going to disintegrate. But you want them to be in there long enough so that both of the feathers that you have put together here are saturated. So if you separate them like this, you could see that they are saturated. So that's all that you need. You don't need to overthink it. But here's a step that is very important. When you're applying the feathers, you can start anywhere you want along here, but you do want to start on the bottom. You do not want to start at the top. And I'm going to show you an example here. So I don't want my feathers to be like crazy hanging off, at the end. So I'm going to start applying them probably right about up here. So just like I did with the feathers on the top of the head, taking my feathers, pinching them together at the top where I'm going to insert it, and then right where I'm going to insert, I just pinch and press in, and then I could take that clay and move that clay right over that group of feathers. Do another one here for you. So I'm kind of pinching at the top, making it a little concave, turning it this way so that you want this section of the feathers that are concave pointing towards your armature. You don't want to insert them like this, because that's going to look funny. So you want to insert them with the concave facing your sculpture. So I'm going to go ahead, here's another one. I'm going to just push that feather up in there while pinching, And then taking that clay, and you can push that clay a little bit right back over the top of that feather. I'm going to go ahead and continue this patterning all the way on the bottom. So pinching, holding it together, pinching, and then just sort of pressing it in there. You could take your clay that you displaced and move it back right on over on the top of that feather. Here's another one here. Pinch so you're holding it. Come in. Pinch and insert into that wet clay. And then you can move that clay right on over. Do a few more here on the bottom. Pressing in, moving that clay down. This is going to take some time, patience, and a little bit of finesse. Like I said, don't overthink it. If you start overthinking it, you're going to get, frustrated. But make sure that, take your time with it, get them in there correctly, and then you'll be just fine. So I'm going to get some more soak in my little bath for them of my paste. Keeping my sets of feathers together, because if you start separating them all, it's going to be a real pain. Okay, the bottom row of my feathers are in there, all the way around on the bottom, and I did make sure that I pushed that clay back over a little bit. I'm going to get the camera a little bit closer for you here and show you the next section of feathers here. So really what you want to do, you kind of want to stagger them a little bit. So you see how these two on the bottom, you want to put, maybe put one right in there, just like that. You may end up displacing a feather or so, so you have to go back in there and kind of just sort of finagle it a little bit. So let me take another one. And I'm pushing right up in there. Pushing the clay back. So another one. So pretty much just a little bit. You want to insert your second row, your third row, how many rows that you end up inserting, just above the rows that you have already inserted beneath them. Hopefully that makes sense. Couple of things that I'm being conscious of while I'm doing this is that I'm making sure that I'm moving that clay back over where I inserted the feathers, and then making sure that those feathers underneath this layer is staying in put. Okay, the other thing that I suggest is that you get a bigger bowl than this. This is just a small, Tupperware container. If you have a bigger bowl of paste, you can get a lot more of these feathers in there, soak in at the same time. I'm just going to continue on here and insert those feathers. So bottom layer and then another layer up above those. I'm going to continue on here with another layer right up above the ones that I just inserted. Trying not to splash the camera with paste as I'm doing this. Okay, so that is my third layer, and something that I want to point out is this third layer that I have up here. There is some spaces, more significant spacing in between them than on the two bottom layers, and that's perfectly fine. You do want to get the two bottom layers kind of close together so that it's kind of hanging over, the feathers are kind of hanging over, you know, all the way down here. You don't want it like touching towards the bottom of this base, but it looks better. It's going to look more full down there. And then once you get to halfway point, you know, you could start separating them, having a little bit more bigger gaps in between each of your feathers. And then, so for instance, this one's pushed over a little bit that way. So I want to take my next set of feathers and I'm going to insert it up here. Push the clay down over it. That way you still see there's feathers underneath. And if you do have some separation in between like your groups of feathers like here, don't worry about that. It's just going to make it look a little bit more full, so it's not a problem at all. So like this, there's some separation here. Not a big deal. So on this one, I have these two feathers down here. I want to come up here like in between them. So I'm going to come up, insert. I know it's kind of hard to see because my hand's in the way, but there's really no other way to do this. Take the other one. Do make sure that you're pressing the displaced clay back over that area of your paper feathers that you've inserted. So here's a gap in between these. I'm going to come up here and insert it right above where that gap is. Pushing that clay over. I'm going to come over, do the same here. Come up above here. So it's basically a pattern of repetition. All right, just continuing on. I moved on to my next layer up here. So again, there's a gap there. Gonna go in above that, pinch, and insert that feather. Now when you get to a certain, you know, areas in here where some of them look like they're kind of twisted or weird, you could just go ahead and manipulate them. Just take them manipulate them, but just make sure that after you do that, that you do have that clay over that tip or that area where you inserted your feathers. You know, all that clay that I've displaced, I'm just moving it back over. All right, this wing is done. And you can see how full it looks just by inserting those feathers the way that I did. Sort of overlapping them, but key is start on the bottom so that you could overlap, you know, moving upwards. If you start at the top, you have to come underneath a feather, and it's just, you don't want to do that. It's very, very difficult. Start on the bottom. So there you have it. These areas up here, if you feel like when you get to your top layer or row of feathers and you don't feel like you have enough clay, you could go ahead, take a little bit of clay and just put a little bit of clay right on top of those feathers if you feel like you need to. Now and then you're always going to have some clay showing up on the top. So you want to take the time and do a little bit of, I would just go in with something. It doesn't have to be, it could be a toothpick, it could be anything, and just put in a little bit of texture so that when this dries, it doesn't look like there's an obvious amount of clay bulked up there. So by pressing in just a little bit of texture in there where some of that clay is showing, I mean, be careful not to displace your feathers. You want them to remain in there, stuck in there pretty good. But just put some texture in there just like that. That's pretty much it. That's how you apply these feathers. And, you know, while they're still in there and still wet and they haven't dried, you can go in and you can fluff them a little bit. You know, you could press them down if you don't want them. Well, I dislodged the feathers, so I have to go in there and put some clay over that. Not a big deal. But you could, you know, move them around a little bit, get them into the position that you would like them to be before they start drying. If you have some that's kind of curled up underneath or that got displaced, go in there and kind of move them, because I will tell you right now, once this dries, those feathers are going to dry in place. All of this is going to harden and dry in place, so you will not be able to manipulate them after that. Do the same thing on the other side. Make sure that you do have plenty of your paper feathers ready to go and cut out. Yeah, but same thing on the other side. So I'll do that off camera, and then I'll see how much room. I don't really have a whole lot of room back here for some tail feathers. So once I get this side done, I'll have even less room. But I'll have a little bit of room to come in and put some tail feathers in there. I'll show you. So just like this back here, where you could see I put some tail feathers in there. Well, I think you guys all get the gist and understanding on how to apply these wing feathers. So I'm not going to continue on camera and finish this owl. It's the same. So you'll do the same side when you apply your feathers to your other wing side. Same concept. And then if you have some room left back here and you feel like applying some tail feathers, it's the same thing as well. Bulk up a little bit of clay, at least a ½ inch in the area where you want to attach those feathers. Start attaching them at the bottom, work your way up. And then any exposed wet clay, you just go ahead and press in a little texture so that it kind of blends in evenly and looks cohesive. That's it. That's as far as I will go on the paper mache owl tutorial. I will not be doing another segment on this on painting. I usually do, the last segment on any tutorial is painting. However, that's going to be completely up to you. I've simply just ran out of time for 2025. Many more tutorials coming up in the new year. But anyway, as far as painting is concerned, depending on whatever color choices that you have in mind, these are both browns and golds. Make sure that before you start painting, you cover up your eyes with some, don't use masking tape. If it's the only thing that you have, go ahead and use it. But if you can, go out and get some painter's tape, the blue painter's tape. It's going to work better than just plain masking tape. So you want to cover those up. And it's really easy. It's a lot easier to paint when you got your base tone or base color on. If you go down to the hardware store, go to the paint section, find a can of spray paint in the base color that you want to start your owl off on and spray paint it, because it's going to be very, very difficult. If you don't have an airbrush, use spray paint, because it'll be very, very difficult to get in between all of these little feathers and all these things in here where it's kind of covered up, with the feathers. Get some spray paint, and then, you could dry brush other colors on. That's basically what I did with these two owl sculptures here. This one has a little bit of like metallic bronze or gold. You can use that. Whatever color choices that you have in mind. But anyway, that's a wrap on the owl tutorial finally. Sorry it took so long, but anyway, like I said, ton more tutorials coming up in 2026. And as always, I thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.